Resume recording. Good, all ready to go. So that all should work. Okay, okay, good. Thanks.
So as Wayne mentioned, I am a South Australian. I think that's really important to mention at the start of this because it sort of goes to show how a South Australian is actually helping. And I'm now representing Australia as in an international conservation organisation. And we're not for profit as well. So today I'll be talking to you about the 30 years of the Cheetah Conservation Fund and how we're saving the cheetahs. No.
Just you have everything organised and then you might have to press that or press that. Okay. Sometimes it's a temperament.
All right. So just a quick introduction about cheetahs and why they need to be conserved. At the moment, there's less than 7,000 adult cheetahs in Africa. This population has had a 90% decline in the last 100 years. Being veterinary students as well, you've probably studied about cheetahs and their genetic bottleneck as well. At the moment, there's about 50% of this population is in Southern Africa. Namibia is now known as the cheetah capital of the world due to the work that the Cheetah Conservation Fund is doing. Of this, about 20 populations have got less than 100 individuals in this, making it even harder for the individuals to be finding mates and reproducing. And about 90% of cheetahs are found outside of protected areas. One of these main reasons is because there's a lot of competition between cheetahs and larger carnivores as well. So some of the problems that the cheetah are facing at the moment is habitat loss. Farmers are encroaching onto their land, and there's a lot of conflict between cheetahs and livestock farmers. They've also got issues with the illegal wildlife trafficking. I'll talk about that a little bit later on in this talk. And it all goes back to losing like inbreeding and loss of genetic diversity, which is making it even harder for them to breed. And as you know, they do have reproductive issues as well. So what is the Cheetah Conservation Fund? It is a research and education centre that was founded in 1990 by a woman called Dr. Lauren Pfeiffer, that you can see in the top corner there. She's an American researcher and scientist, and she has been working with cheetahs since the 70s. The Cheetah Conservation Fund today is now 67,000 hectares, and it's a wildlife reserve and also a working livestock farm. CCF is also a leading organisation in the world dedicated to saving the cheetah in the wild. So our main focus is working on how to keep the cheetahs in the wild. We do not breed any of the cheetahs in Namibia. We have got work outside of, like all throughout the cheetah range. And as I mentioned, Namibia is home to the largest cheetah population in the world. Now, CCF is open to the public 364 days a year. The only day we have closed is Christmas Day. So just a little bit of geography for you guys to know where we are based. Where the star is we're just outside Otjiwarongo, so about 44 kilometres from Otjiwarongo is our nearest town. So it's very remote, desert-like environment, but also I think it's really fun to be out on site full time. So CCF's vision is to see a world in which cheetahs live and flourish in coexistence with people and the environment. So a lot of our work is actually working with the people. Not very often do we actually have hands-on work with the cheetahs, which I've learned to discover. So the three main areas that we focus on is research, conservation, and education. So as I mentioned, we are a sanctuary. We've got orphan cheetahs. At the moment, we've probably got about 40 cheetahs in this sanctuary. We have got a working veterinary clinic and a genetics lab on site. We're one of the few genetic labs in the country as well. We're a training facility, so we have farmers come in and learn about farming practices from us. We run a goat farm where we milk our goats, and we have an on-site creamery as well that's now producing ice cream, fudge, soap, you name it, from milk products that we're probably making it already. Some of the best goat ice cream around that I've tasted. But part of having goats on a cheetah sanctuary is that we've got our livestock guardian dog programs. I'll talk more about this program a little bit more, but it's one of our most successful programs we have that is helping to save the cheetahs in the wild. We also have a habitat restoration program known as Bush Block. Again, I'll talk about this in a few more slides. And as I've already said, we're open to the public research and education centre. We've also got ongoing ecology monitoring throughout our sites. So we've got monthly game counts and monitoring what our wildlife is like, because we do have free-ranging cheetahs on our site. So Cheetah Genetics Lab, it's been open for about 10 years now. We're working very closely with the universities within Namibia. And part of our long-term cheetah biology studies is that we have been collecting samples from over 900 individuals now. So this could be sperm samples. We've got a gene bank that we can use. If it gets really bad out in Namibia, we can actually use these sperm collections as to artificial inseminate wild females as well. But also hair samples, blood samples, and things like that. So we can continue on with our studies. We might not have a need to study them at the moment, but later on down the track, we have got those studies that are dating back from the 70s. So part of our genetics program is we have dogs that are specially trained to sniff out cheetah scat. Cheetahs have got a very large home range, so it's very hard to find cheetahs to actually go and sample them. So these dogs, they love going out, love working. I know both of those dogs, and they're very, very lovely dogs. And what they do is once they've found that scat, they'll signal to the handler that they have found cheetah scat, and they'll sit next to it. And then the handler will go and collect that, and then we'll take it back into our genetics lab. And from there, we can run any sort of analysis on that poo. So we can match it to camera traps that we have set out in our reserve, and we can work out if this is a new individual through the land, and if it's new, if it's related to one that we've already seen. And so then we can start monitoring where those cheetahs are going and how they're interacting as well. And so that's just a picture of one of our camera traps of being able to see cheetahs in a play tree. That's a very common place for cheetahs to come, hang out, and they sort of can get to know who else is in the area. So one of the biggest issues that cheetahs are facing is the conflict with farmers. So unfortunately, farmers are still trapping cheetahs and still trapping them at quite a large number. So one of the things that we're trying to do is trying to convince the farmers you don't need to trap the cheetahs. You can live in harmony alongside them. So we introduced the Livestock Guardian Dog program back in 1994. It started with 10 Anatolian dogs that were imported from Turkey. Since then, we have placed over 650 dogs in the last 26 years. And at the moment, we've got about 206 dogs currently placed on these farms. Now, when CCF go and place a dog with a farm, it's not just any farmer asking for them. We go out and we do pre-approvals. We're checking to make sure that farm is suitable for that dog to be placed. The dogs are placed about 12 weeks of age. And then from there, we then do a checkup at 3 months, 6 months, and then 12 months. After the 12-month checkup, we're going out there yearly and we're checking on them. So we're making sure the dogs are being fed. That's a big thing that we're trying to get across to the farmers is you can't feed them your mealy pup. Pup is disgusting. It's got no nutrition to it for a dog. They need to be fed dog biscuits and a proper balanced diet. Now, any time that we find that the farmers are not listening to us, we have the ability to go in there and confiscate the dog. That's part of their contract when they get given the dog. But most farmers are doing the right thing. They see that these dogs are really important to them. Because the cheetahs get blamed for a lot of livestock losses, even though that might not be always the case. So we breed these dogs at the Cheetah Conservation Fund, and we will place them with farmers. So the map down here is all the dogs that we have placed in the last 26 years. It's probably a little bit outdated now because we've just had our last puppy placed a couple of days ago. So we're waiting on another litter of puppies to born any day now. And this is some of our dairy goats that we've got as well. So part of having the dogs on site means that these dogs are around livestock from the day they open their eyes and can start hearing. So as I said, we are a research centre. So this is our latest publication from the Livestock Guardian Dog program. So this was analysing all of the data that we have from those farmer surveys when we've gone out to check up on those dogs across the 25 years. So one of the things is we do before a placement, because at the moment we've got a 4-year waiting list for these dogs. We can't just go, well, you ask first, you get a dog, and you might only have one livestock loss. So what we look at is how many livestock losses due to carnivores that a farm will have per year. So I don't think our pointer will. Oh, so here, this is pre-dog. There's not many farmers are reporting that they've got no loss for that year before they get a placement of dog. And some farmers are even reporting up to 40 individual livestock loss per year. That's massive. This is the farmer's livelihood. These different bars just represent the different types of farming communities we have within Namibia. There's no overall sort of significance between the different farming types. But after placing a dog, there's a significant increase in the number of farmers that are now reporting 0 livestock losses. So overall, we have got about an 80 to 100% reduction in livestock losses just by placing this dog out on the farm. The research also goes and looks at how quickly was that dog able to be able to start being effective. And some farmers have reported even a 12-week-old puppy, placing it with the livestock has been enough to deter predators. Over here, jackal is the leading cause of livestock loss in Namibia, even though the cheetah gets blamed for pretty much about 90% of it. And that's one of the reasons why farmers are going out and capturing the cheetahs or killing them, because they do not like cheetahs on their farmlands. Interesting enough, from the study, we also found that by placing a dog, it decreases the number of human-induced losses as well. Because a lot of your Namibian farmers don't like dogs, especially big Anatolians that have got very loud bark. So it's helping in that aspect as well in controlling humans. So to help with the human-wildlife conflict, CCF has established what we're now calling CCF East. It's another research field centre. It was opened in February last year, and it's sort of like a rapid response field team. So it's only a couple of staff members out there, and their main goal was to go out to these remote communities where they cannot get access to the main centre at Otjiwarongo, and they'll do farming trainings and things like that. There's a farmer's hotline. So if a farmer has got an issue with a cheetah, they can ring this hotline and go, hey, I've just spotted a cheetah, is showing an interest in my livestock. What can I do? So the team can then go out, assess the farm, and look at what the strategies is. They also help with sample collection. So any samples they might have seen of cheetah scat or some hair, they can take that back to our main centre as well and help with that ongoing collection that we have. So I've been talking a lot about farmer trainings. So a lot of it is actually, how do you manage your livestock? Some of this stuff to me, growing up as a farmer here in Adelaide, I thought breeding programs was pretty simple, pretty easy understanding. But over there, they just have the males running with the females all the time. So they have no idea when their livestock are due to lamb or calf or what they've got. So by talking to them about placing your buck in with your buck or your ram, in with your livestock, in with the females, and knowing when those livestock are due to give birth can mean that those animals can stay behind in a kraal, in a camp. And then the livestock that are not due to birth can go out and graze for the day. Because it means that you can then monitor that young, and that young is an easy target for a predator. Cheetahs are non-conflict animals. They don't like to have, if it's difficult to get to, they're just going to run off. They don't want it. They want to naturally be eating their own prey. So by just putting a dog, it makes it a little bit harder. By making sure that your young are birthed in close to the homestead, the cheetah or the predator is not going to get there. So saying that, to me, that was my biggest thing. I thought that was pretty simple coming from breeding programs and farming here. But that's what we're encouraging farmers to do. Have your breeding program. Also, pretty straightforward. Have healthy livestock. Do vaccinations. A cheetah or any other predator will pick on something that's an easy target. So if you've got animals that are limping, ticks are a main problem over in Namibia. If their hooves are overgrown, your animal's limping and it becomes an easy target. So by teaching the farmers how to trim hooves, how to remove ticks correctly, how to apply tick grease to prevent the ticks from occurring in the same place, you're making healthy livestock. So that livestock has got the best ability it can to remove itself from a predator if a predator comes across. Kraals, so a little bit different over in Namibia, that the animals will go out to graze for the day, but a lot of farms won't have a kraal, won't have an area to put their animals overnight. So by putting a fence around the animals, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the predator to get to the livestock. And not to overgraze. Overgraze is an important thing. A lot of farmers will overgraze and there's just barren ground. There's nothing there. But you need to be able to work alongside your herbivores as well, because as I said, carnivores want to naturally eat their own, their natural prey. But overgrazing is pushing the herbivores out of the area. So then the carnivores have got nothing else but the livestock to prey on. Also, overgrazing causes the thick woody thorn bush to take over, and that's not suitable for livestock management as well. With farmer trainings, we also talk about how to live alongside and trying to eliminate that human-wildlife conflict we have as well. Also, we have a program called a QID. A farmer will wake up in the morning and they'll see a cheetah sitting under a tree, and they believe the cheetah was the one that killed their livestock, which, as I just said beforehand, majority of it is jackal. So what we try and do is teach the farmers how to identify what predator has actually killed your livestock, because each predator will have different ways on how to manage it and prevent more further killings. So this data is a little bit old. I couldn't find anything a bit newer, but we have trained over 6,000 farmers since this farmer training have started. And within a year, we've been able to train over 1,200 people. That's probably increased slightly over the last couple of years, but it did decrease last year because of COVID. We weren't able to go out to the communities as much. So as I said, poor farming practices leads to habitat changes. This is the woody acacia. I hate these trees with a passion. The thorns are massive, like no joke seeing one like that big. But it stops the animals, so the cheetah stops the animal from running through the bush. Since the 1950s, over 26 million of hectares have been affected by this thick woody thorn bush. Currently today, there's about 10 million hectares have got this woody thorn bush. So it's a big issue for these farmers where the soils are poor conditions and it's being overtaken by the thorn bush. So what has CCF done to try and prevent this? We have developed our bush harvesting program called Bush Block. So it's estimated enough thorn bush in Namibia has got enough sustainable energy to power all of Southern Africa, which is quite impressive. It's also a major job creation. We employ all local people in our Bush Block program, and it's been operating since 2001. So for where a country has high unemployment rates, job creation is also a very big thing for them as well. We've also got ongoing research into how to harvest this bush. Now this bush, even though I've said all the issues with it, it's still a natural bush and it belongs in Namibia. So we've got research that shows how to harvest the bush in a sustainable way. So you can't just go out and completely clear the land. You need to have trees of different sizes and different ages as well. And we've got studies about how best to clear the bush. So do you do it by hand or do you use mechanical harvesting? How long does it take the animals to come back into a cleared area? There's a lot of studies going on at the moment. It's quite an interesting field to be watching. But also because we're a research area, a lot of the farmers are also watching what we're doing. And so we've posted bush harvesting training days, and we've had people from around Namibia come to our centre at Otjiwarongo to learn how to harvest this bush in a sustainable way. The block that's produced that you see up in the top corner here, that's the final product. It burns really hot and it's good for the people to have their braais. It's like a ground fire pit. It's a lot of people, that's their typical evening, they'll go and start the fire, have a braai, and that's their meal. So they all love this bush block because it's got really intense heat, but it's also really good for cooking with. The other thing that's really really opened my eyes since I've been over there is the illegal wildlife trade. As Wayne mentioned, I met Michelle from the zoo, and hearing it at a zoo aspect that people are still taking cheetahs from the wild, it's hard to believe it's happening today. But sort of witnessing it firsthand, I can say for certain that it is happening. It's estimated about 300 cubs are taken yearly. And from that, only about 1 in 6 cubs will survive. Now, the cubs that do make it to market and make it in a pet situation, they're dying about 2 to 3 years of age because these people don't know how to care for them. They don't care about them. What they care about is having that social media, having that good picture of that cheetah driving around in a Maserati, and that's what they want. They want to show their importance by showing how much money they have to get a cheetah. So at the moment, a lot of the cheetah trade is coming up from the Horn of Africa, which is this part along here, and through a region called Somaliland. Somaliland is a breakaway country from Somalia. It's slightly better in safety-wise in Somaliland compared to Somalia, but it's still a very young and developing country. So it's very difficult to get supplies there. And to me, that's why I believe the cheetahs are being trafficked through Somalia, being a sort of a younger, undeveloped country. So just in my time of being with the Cheetah Conservation Fund, I have seen a massive increase in the work we're doing in Somaliland. We're trying to prevent the cheetahs from being taken in the wild. We're working with the Ministry of Environment and Rural Development to confiscate these cheetahs. We've had a couple of really good victories in the last couple of years, and people are starting to go to jail now for their work, for smuggling the cheetahs. So in 2018, we set up our first safe house where these cheetahs that have been confiscated from the legal pet trade are coming into CCF's care and are being cared and looked after. At the end of last year, we're now operating 3 safe houses and a volunteer house. We have started a volunteer program out there now. We have got a vet clinic set up in Safe House 1. Now, when I say vet clinic, we've basically got a converted bedroom room that we're now using as a clinic. A lot of the vets over there, they know how to treat cattle or camels. They don't know how to work with dogs and cats. So we've got a lot of vets coming in internationally that are helping to train these qualified vets because they don't have experience working with cheetahs. We're also working with the Ministry of Environment and Rural Development to develop the first national park. These cubs that are coming into CCF care are only a couple of weeks old. They're being hand raised. There's no chance of them ever going back out into the wild. So what do you do with all these cheetahs? So that's where CCF and the government are getting their heads together, and we're going to develop a national park where we're looking at trying to release some of those cheetahs back into the national park. They'll still have to be fed, but it will give them the space that they need. At the moment, there's about 60 cheetahs in CCF Somaliland's care. That's a lot considering that there's only about 5 or 6 people there at any given time. As I said, we do have a volunteer program that has started up in the last couple of years as well. And in February of this year, we held our first vet training workshop. We had about 12 vets come in from the region to learn how to care for cheetahs. So that's, for us, is quite important. Dr. Lauren Pfeiffer does go over there as often as she can to help train these vets, but it's not possible for her to be running 2 centres in 2 different countries. So these are some of the cubs that came in last year. Unfortunately, we had about 30 cubs come in within 2 months. We doubled our numbers within 2 months. And I was like, well, where are we going to put them? So they came along Safe House 3. This is just some of the pictures of the facilities we've got. Very basic. As I said, it's very hard to get things. One of my jobs as being the co-volunteer coordinator for Somaliland was trying to get volunteers to bring in supplies. And sometimes it was really random requests, like, we've got a tree in the middle of the centre that we don't want, but there's no axe in the country. Can you ask someone to bring an axe head? So this is in people's suitcases. This is what they're having to work with, is that there's no supplies anywhere. Or we've just employed a cook, but we're throwing all our food away because there's no containers to store food. Can someone bring in storage containers for people? So it's been quite eventful, and also it's sad to see what it's taking, that we've got 60 cheetahs and we've now had the need for 3 facilities because of what poachers are deciding to do and take these cheetahs from the wild. So up in the top right corner here, this was Light as a Feather. To me, she's one of the ones, she's the pioneer of CCF Somaliland. She and her sister came in that middle of 2018, and that was the youngest cub that anyone in Somaliland had seen. So they had no idea how to care for her. So Laurie got on the plane and spent about 3 weeks raising her. It was right before her US tour. So she had prior engagement. So she went from Somaliland to the US. Someone else came in that had a bit more cheetah experience and had spent another 3 weeks training those keepers. But that was in the hotel room. They had nowhere to keep this cub. That young, they're very susceptible to diseases. But since then, it has grown a little bit more. So this middle photo here is actually in the cub nursery room in Safe House 1 now. But very basic sort of areas. This is the vet clinic. It's just a folding picnic table that they're working on. There's no proper veterinary supplies in that area. This X-ray machine, I had the duty of trying to put that into a suitcase and keep it under a certain weight limit. Laurie's brought that in from South Africa, brought it to Namibia, and then brought it up to Somaliland. That's how we're operating at the moment because of the way the country is. So as I mentioned, we're looking at potentially our first national park. So that's quite a landmark sort of victory for conservation in the area. So this is this is Laurie, one of our employees there, and then a couple of the government officials. I should also point out, it's very different to being here in Australia. You cannot leave Hargeisa, which is the capital of Somaliland, without an armed guard. So even he features in the photo. This site is about 20 to 30 k's outside of Hargeisa. There is no electricity, there is no running water. So in order to turn this site into a new national park, we need to run electricity, we need to have water out there. And there's also not a very good road, so they're looking at road development as well. So it's a long project, but hopefully things will turn out nicely and the cheetahs can have a nice home. And these are a couple of termite mounds in the area, and Laurie believes it's a good omen because the one on the left looks like a cheetah. So what will it take to save the cheetah? In CCF Namibia, we have got about 100 to 150 staff members. This includes a bush encroachment, like bush block program. And we've also got 2 to 3 staff members out at CCF East. In Somaliland, it can be about 4 to 8 staff members at a time. US, who are purely focusing on fundraising and lectures and things like that, we've got about 8 staff members. A lot of them help with the coordination of Laurie. And in the UK, we've got about 2 staff members as well. Again, in the UK, they mainly focus on fundraising for us. Plus, we couldn't do this without volunteers. Like all of this, like our numbers will be a lot higher if we didn't have the help of volunteers. So in 2019, our budget was about 4 million Australian dollars for our operational costs. In 2020, because of COVID, we had to adjust that budget slightly, but it could have quite easily been a lot higher. So a lot of revenue comes from the US, UK, and from Namibia. So we get the income from Namibia from our grants, from our farms, as I said, working farms. So we've got cattle and sheep that we will sell. Our biomass program, so bush block, we're selling that firewood, and from our tourism as well. Other financial support comes from Australia. Manato Zoo, or Zoos SA, is our largest donor in Australia and one of our longest running donors as well. So pretty impressive being South Australians and being able to support them. Also, we get funds from Italy and France and other parts of the world as well. As I said, international organisation, I have actually lost count how many different chapters we have around the world. So just a little bit of what has happened in the last year because of the pandemic. It was the first time we've actually had to close to the public. We had restrictions on how many people were allowed to be out at our bush block facility because they were all get bussed in from town. So we had limits on how many people could be in a bus. So it made production on bush block slower, which meant that we lost revenue from bush block. We obviously couldn't be open to interns and volunteers because we had restrictions on how many people could be around. And interns and volunteers, they bring money and they pay to come out to CCF and to learn experience. So all up, we reckon we've lost probably about 1/3 of our revenue from all of these restrictions. It meant we had to say goodbye to a lot of our tourism team. So looking in this photo, a lot of these staff members are no longer with us because of COVID. But because it's not just CCF that's been impacted, Namibia is a tourist town, a tourist country. And so a lot of organizations are struggling with the lack of tourism. So it means a lot more people are unemployed now. And so there's been an increase in poaching. So it goes sort of against what we've been trying to work. And that's why the CCF East has been really important, is that we're trying to get up to those farmers who have struggled with the worst drought in 120 years it's been. And now they're dealing with the fact they've lost their tourism as well. So we're trying to tell them that you don't need to go and kill the cheetahs. If you put in the correct livestock management procedures, you won't have that need to kill your cheetah. Where tourism will come back to the country and you want your cheetah there for your tourists to see again. So it's just something, being in Namibia last year and sort of hearing about the increased poaching, that was something for us to be concerned about. We've got a lot of rare and endangered species in our reserve. And so we had to be careful that we wasn't coming across poachers. There's a lot of like, hey, I'm driving on the road at this time, don't shoot, it's me. Because we do have armed guards on site as well. So how can you help? Obviously, everything works on money these days, unfortunately. So donations, we always welcome donations. Social media is also a big thing. As much as you can share good news stories and share it with your friends and family, also a big thing is do not go and share those pictures of the cheetahs being as pets. That's what we're trying to prevent. So if you see any sort of like people trying to sell cheetahs and things like that on social media, it's a good idea to report it and trying to get those people in jail or let the authorities know what's going on. You can volunteer from home. So at time to time, we can have programs that you can do right from here. That's one of the things I did before I actually went over to CCF, is that we had what we called our citizen science project. So we asked the public around the world to help us identify camera trap photos. We had millions of them. And it was way too much for all the staff members to get on and do. So we asked people to sign up, log in, even if you can do like 2 or 3 photos a day. It didn't take that long. It would slowly help us get through. So that particular program has closed, but there is opportunities like that from time to time to be able to help from here. As I said, internships, a good way to get some experience. It's a good way to bring money into the country, into CCF as well. Or you can overnight at CCF. We have, in the last 3-4 years, we have developed the Cheetah View Lodge. So it's the main dining area. It's got 5 bedrooms. It's quite nice. That's where film crews will go and things like that when we have them come over. And as I said, share with friends and family. You might not be able to travel, not talking COVID, or you might not have the funds at the moment to donate. But if you talk with your friends and family about the fight of the cheetahs, they somewhere might have a connection somewhere that can make that, like, can help donate, or might be interested in coming over and holidaying and staying with the Cheetah Conservation Fund. So internships, just quickly, just a little rundown of what you can actually do as an intern. So the interns mainly help with the day-to-day health checks of our livestock. Unfortunately, people think coming to CCF means you'll be able to help with cheetahs, but we're actually trying to prevent cheetah workups and hands-on with the cheetahs, because the idea is trying to prevent them from getting sick. So day-to-day health checks of livestock means checking there's no ticks, helping with vaccinations, helping when it's comes birthing time and making sure the animal is birthing correctly. We've got lots of dogs and puppies. So always helping, just monitoring the dogs, and if there are any sort of like tick or little issues like that, the vet students are the ones that go out and help as well. At time to time, when we do have cheetahs come in because of conflict with the farmers, we will always perform a cheetah workup. So we anesthetize the cheetah, and then we'll just make sure there's nothing wrong with the cheetah. It's a good way for us to get our hands on the cheetah and collect that hair or blood samples as well that can go back to our genetic analysis as well. We're also running a One Health workshop at the moment. So rabies is a big thing out in Namibia, where we're working in the CCF East area. So part of our One Health program is we have people go out and vaccinate domestic dogs, because by stopping it at the domestic dogs means that the domestic dogs cannot pass it on to your wildlife as well. We're also working very closely in the area where there's one remaining populations of the African wild dog. They're the most endangered carnivore on the African continent at the moment. And this particular area has got a healthy population, but unfortunately it will not stay healthy if the farmers continue to kill them. Ecology interns, as I said, camera traps. We all love camera trap photos. We've also got a couple of rhinos on site. We do not advertise this publicly on our website or anything like that because of poaching reasons. But part of our ecology interns is monitoring where those rhinos are at any given time. Also seasonal and monthly game counts. So as I said, we want to conserve the cheetahs, but to conserve the cheetahs, we need to be going from the grass up. So we monitor our landscapes, we monitor what's grazing there, we monitor what sort of wildlife we have there. So these are just some of the photos we have got around the area. So we've got brown hyena, we've got waterbuck, giraffe, do have the cheetah every now and then. We always get really excited when we find out there's a cheetah been crossing our land. We also accept general interns. So they help with all of the above, plus they get given project work. They can go out and help place the dog on farms. They can help. Kababas is also the CCF East field site as well. So they do have the opportunity. They can go out there and they can be on the ground, front line, helping with the farmer trainings and things like that. They can also be involved with our scout dog program, going out, helping train the new dogs how to find some cheetah poo. We do also have horses. It's a good way for like vet interns to get some experience with larger animals. A lot of vets from Europe have never worked with large animals, so the horses are there as well. For me, horses are also a little bit of enjoyment. I get to go riding in the mornings, but when we're riding, we also can do a lot of animal monitoring as well. So if we find an interesting looking scat, we can pick it up and bring it back to the genetics lab, or we can also do tracking, like there's a brown hyena has gone through there as well. So we can still do ecology monitoring on horseback. We have some interns that like to come through and focus on our bush block or our garden centre. We do have a small garden that's actually feeding our staff and volunteers at the moment. This last week, they've been able to produce about 40 kilos of vegetables. So that was really impressive to hear about that one. And also cheetah husbandry. It's down the bottom because I almost forgot about it. We've got so many things going on at our centre. I almost forgot the main thing, which is cheetah husbandry. So it's getting in there, chopping up the meat, and then helping to go out and run the cheetah, because that's the biggest form of enrichment we have over there, and then feeding the cheetahs afterwards. We also have a cheetah run, so it's just purely just for the cheetahs to get on a lure and just to run. And you can help with that as well. So lots of fun things we have over at CCF. You can also go to CCF Somaliland. Hopefully I haven't put you off about the conditions. For the vet students, if you wanted to be hands-on with the cheetahs, in my opinion, that's more how you can be hands-on than going to CCF in Namibia. Because you get to help with the cheetah husbandry. You help with cub rearing. As I said, 30 cheetahs in 2 months. That's a lot of cubs that needed round-the-clock care. When they're really young, every couple of hours you have to feed these cubs. So if you want hands-on, that is an opportunity. There's a lot of construction work. As I said, it's a new facility, so there's a lot of construction going on at the moment, but also just helping with administration and anything that they need there. It's just like an extra body, and so anything that the staff are doing, you get thrown in and you get to help as well. And that comes to the end of the talk, guys. Hopefully I haven't bored you too much. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to send me an email. My email is down the bottom. I'm also the co-volunteer coordinator for Somaliland. So if you've got any questions about volunteering over there, I'm happy to answer them as well.
Thanks so much, Lauren. That was an amazingly inspiring talk. It's one of those projects that is really incredibly holistic. It's not just, you think about it about saving cheetah, but it ends up milking goats and making ice cream and providing funds for these projects, clearing the area, supporting animals in Somaliland. It's extraordinary. So I just wanted to open up and see if there's any questions that anybody had for Lauren. Alex?
I was just going to ask in terms of how you identify what's killed the livestock, or the signs you see, whether it's jackal versus cheetah.
No, every predator, they will bite the individual bite the livestock, or they're killed differently. So cheetahs will have it along the jugular. Wild dog, for example, will just rip your guts out straight away. So they look different, and every sort of predator will kill differently as well. So that's how we start training the farmers and what to look for.
Yes. I wanted to ask, with you mentioned cheetahs having reproductive issues, is that also like the bottleneck genetic?
Yeah, so it comes back from the genetic bottleneck. Also, they're very difficult to breed in captivity as well. So that's why we're focusing on trying to keep them in the wild, because they're doing the right thing in the wild. Like if they get stressed, they can quite easily abort the pregnancy as well. And it's sort of, we're starting to find out now that females have got a preference, because males will be in a coalition. So the group of males will come and present themselves to a female. And then she's got the choice of the brothers or the close male relatives, and then she's got her pick of who she likes. Whereas with the decrease in population, your coalitions are starting to get smaller. So she's losing her preference in who she wants to mate with as well.
Sure.
You mentioned genetic bottlenecks and many populations of 100 or less. Then you just said that what's like a functional size population?
I don't know that one off the top of my head. Sorry. Yeah.
But do you guys have like an aim for some of those populations? You're trying to boost their numbers?
Yeah, we're trying to boost the numbers because they've got such large territories. We want like slightly higher densities because it's easier for them to cross paths. Whereas if they're in low densities, it's really hard for them to come across each other and find each other when it's time for the female to reproduce.
Wayne, you have a question in the chat.
Oh, do we? Wow. I'll have to try and work that out.
I was going to say, I'll let you work that one.
You continue. I think it might be another one. It's been really interesting. Thank you very much. Yes. Can I speak up, please?
The majority of the cheetahs that are trafficked outside, where are they going?
They're normally up to the I can't say this stat. UAE, Yemen, all of that sort of region, like just north of Africa is where they're going into, where your sheikhs and sheikhs are, and that's who wants them at the moment.
So it's going into the Middle East, basically.
Yeah, Middle East. countries.
Annalise Chabert is one of the lecturers here, has worked in UAE, and she's been involved in some of that, trying to work out where that sort of trade has been going. We had a student looking at some of the online trade of carnivores going in through the Middle East as well. So that, going up to Somaliland is the easiest connection, I think, isn't it?
It's the shortest as well across country.
Pretty lawless as well. So animals can be smuggled over there easily. Sure.
Have you ever tried relocating the track cheetahs?
Yeah, so I didn't mention it in the talk, but part of CCS workers as well is that we rehabilitate cheetahs. So any cheetah that we comes in at a certain age, so normally a couple of years old, and has spent enough time with mum to know how to hunt effectively, we look at rewilding them, is what we're calling them. So we release them back into the wild. But sometimes they come in. We had one cheetah that was actually caught like eating livestock, but it turned out it had a broken foot. So we kept it for a couple of, I think it was nearly a year, so that foot was able to heal properly. We knew it was running properly. And then once it was everything was healthy with the cheetah, we were able to put it back into a different area. Wherever we can, we try and like to put them back into where they came from. But most of the time that's not possible because the farmer will just go out and capture it again. So we've got a wildlife reserve that we work with in a bit south of CCF that will actually take it. It's one of the largest wildlife reserves in the world.
If not, farmers actually capture them, they can actually look at it.
Yes. So a lot of farmers will capture the cheetahs and then shoot them.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, but that's why we've got the hotline in place, is that we want people to call us. Ideally, we want them to call us before they get the cheetah in the trap, so we can do preventative measures. But sometimes we get a phone call, hey, I've just caught a cheetah, come and get it, or I'm shooting it. And they could be 3-4 hours away from our centre. So that's where the hopes of having our CCF East site, we can eliminate that time and hopefully save more cheetah lives. Yes.
So I think we'll just take one last question because it looks like you might need to get going to the next set of classes. So.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in that internship, so if you make a donation, do we get provided with housing?
Yes, yeah. So part of your internship fees is that you get housing, you get food, and you don't really have much expense there while you're actually at the CCF site. If you need to travel anywhere, so if you're based at CCF Ochi Barongo Centre, and you travel to CCF East, normally there's a subsidised as well to help you travel with that as well.
So how long is an internship normally?
Anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. We've
Okay.
had someone intern for 6 months before. So it really depends on what your financial needs are, what you're sort of hoping to get out of the internship as well.
And this is a great opportunity to actually do a whole bunch of different things as well. Expand your horizons in terms of conservation programs and how conservation programs work, rather than just doing your kind of veterinary side of things or animal behaviour or whatever it is. There's a lot of things that you get stuck into, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a jack of all trades. Yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you very much again, Lauren, for coming to give us this fantastic talk. We've just got a little something to say thank you.
Just on behalf of WESIG, we wanted to thank you so much for coming out. We haven't actually had a guest speaker in person in a very long time, so we really appreciate it. So that is for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's wonderful. So, if you're welcome to ask questions. If you need to go, you need to go. But we can talk informally if you're still interested in asking a few questions. Thanks so much. I had no idea.
Sounds familiar, but I wasn't sure why.